I want to talk to you about watching stocks after they report some sort of news event, either earnings, some big contract, something that causes the price to explode to the upside. You know, these are some of the most parabolic stocks out there, and they're the ones that can really be game changers in your portfolio. So we want to keep a list of these and watch them and analyze them and find out when is the best time to enter them. So, you know, it's tricky because sometimes they have a big pop and then give it all back. Sometimes they just keep running. So it's good to have a list and just watch that list and see if we start to see some patterns. So what I've done is been creating a list that I just, every day, I take the stocks that popped up really good for the day and I put them into this list. And I've been doing that for a while now. And I have about 150 stocks in the list. And I thought today would be a good time to go through them. And, you know, together we can analyze them and see which ones are setting up and why, and see where we could have entered in some of these and try to learn a little bit, see what we can learn from watching stocks that have gone parabolic on some sort of report, right? So here we have MGT popping up. You know, the first day, funny, it's like you had volume and then it gave it most of it back. Would you have bought there? Most wouldn't, right? And then wham, you know, 400% rise. So something like this, where would you buy? I mean, I think, you know, your buy point on something like this, it breaks out, falls down. The next day, same thing, but then it surpasses the price here. So this is your confirmation day that we're going higher, and you could have bought in right around the 60-cent area. And it's run up quite a bit since then. CPXX has been on our radar, popped on earnings, and immediately started to trend. And this is sometimes what you'll see is the pop-up, slight pullback, nothing severe, and it just forms the trend and starts going. This may never come back to this level. So now we're having a bigger pullback, but up to this point, you could have bought the quick little pullback, and really what you would have bought here is when you start to break out here. The high this day was we actually closed above the prior high. And then so you're talking about 9 and you went to 15. So that would have been quite a nice gain. RYI, this would have set up as just a regular pullback here. So here it's pulling back right below the 200-day, and your trigger is really just above the 200-day. We wanted to take out the high here at 580. It does take it out, but then it falls back. Takes it out again and falls back and finally closes above it. So this is what we want. We want that close above it, volume's picking up, and then starts to move and then just keeps going. And look at this, no real pullbacks, a little 3-day sort of sideways and then back to going up. Very hard to get into something like this once it's going unless you just buy it and with the thought that it's just going to keep going. You have a nice setup. You may be here, 3 days sideways, you could have bought it, but not a lot of chance to get in once they go. UNXL broke out of this little area. You could have bought the breakout, and then continues up, pulls back hard, and then just chopping around and then rolling over. But this candle here could have been your indication when more than 50% of the price was given back, that huge volume. It's an exhaustion top, so look for those kind of tops, especially in these little guys, because they just don't have the volume to maintain these price runs. So you could have got still at $1 to $2.50, 150%. C&V. This is a young one, just broke out, so we got to see what happens here. But probably if for an entry, I'd drill down to the 15-minute chart, and you see that it's just going sideways. So nothing too dramatic there. So we've had a pop up, and now we're going sideways. We want to see it take out the high close around 5 for an entry, but that looks decent. SYNC broke out, huge contract win, and then pulls back, tries it again, pulls back. So it's trying to find its base here. But where do you buy something like this? This is tough. You really want to see higher prices. Where's your closes are here at 350, 375, 340. You want to see it take out a lot of this. I think you may not get this candle, but all of this is below 350. So you could say 350 is your entry mark if it has the strength to get back. You don't want to buy right here because it could keep going to the downside. So I think some sort of confirmation above 350 on volume might be good over that. GSAT had a big pop. Next day follows through. Now it's pulling back. I'd give it more time. It needs to work on a handle where we can buy. And right now, with higher prices, would bring it above this 280 zone on a close. GSV, right? So gold, still hot. Still the hot sector, right? So where would your entry be on this? Well, we had a big pop. Gave most of it back, and it's been chopping through it. We really want to see it take out that high at 165 with authority, and if it can do that, then that would be a buy. LXU broke out, pulled back, now breaking out again. We're above this 3-day mess here. Still haven't taken the original candle up, but we have closed above the highest close of that group. I think I'd want to see it take out 1544. LGCY had a breakout, kept going. So this one kept going, right? They don't always keep going. And even here, had the 50% retracement of its candle and still kept going. So what you're seeing in these little ones is they have about 4 days or so, and then they kind of crumble. So let's see if that's a trend we see. Skyline broke out of this $6 range. You could have bought it as just a breakout above the 6. Then here again, you could have bought it a breakout here above this minor trend line, and then it broke down. But you can see that you had 2 areas where it was well defined. DRW. Here it broke out, pulled back. That was probably your entry because you pulled back 50%. You could have put your stop at the low of the candle and rode it. And then here you have a reversal candle, high volume, and then down. No real entry yet. Cyber, same thing, popped up the next day. It held most of it, and now working higher. Little pullback. Breaks out again, higher. So here you could have bought as it takes out the high. So the high of this candle. This could have been your entry. And then you probably would have been stopped out. It depends on where you put the stop. You could have put it at this candle. Had you used this candle, we would have been stopped out. But you could have said, all right, we broke out. We have this big up day. Maybe you say 50% of the candle is your stop here. That would have held you to here. And then you probably would have put a stop right in here somewhere. So you might still be in, or if you put it here, you'd probably be stopped out. So you would have got some of it anyways. C-Bay, we had a big pop, and then it just kept going. Again, right here, you want to see the price, the close price, take out this candle. And they did, really. This closed pretty low. This was a higher close. So you could have got some of this. We see the break here. And then pullback, you could have bought the pullback with the stop right there. And then you break out again, you could have bought the breakout. Runs up a couple days, but not a lot of days, right? And then your stop, well, you would have stopped out. So not a huge gain for that. CVO, your entry would have probably been lower, right? We would have been looking at this congestion area. And then we break out here, and you get about 50%. AREX had a pop, and this is one that didn't work out. It chopped sideways and then has failed down. You'll see some of them take out the whole candle plus some fill the gap, and it has, and now it's getting quiet again, and we gotta wait for high prices. RPRX, we had a big breakout. These big candles are harder. From what I'm seeing, that when you get a giant candle, they often give some back, And even this, it kept going, but we're already back into the candle, so I'd hold off. CEMI, you had a well-defined spot, okay, right around 750. You could have bought. It'd still be holding if you had your stop, your buy stop at 750. So that's a case of you find it on your anticipation scans, and you enter a buy stop. Quad had the nice pop, little pullback, and then just continues on. I would have put an entry above the close, the highest close here. So you could have got in here around 1575. And then it runs up, pulling back a little bit, but still looking good. GV, Goldfields. So we pop up. We go a little further. Now we're giving some back. Stop would be at the low of the candle. AMD had a huge candle. And the big candle usually means we're going to go sideways for a while, and we do. So we chop sideways. Now it's working higher. And now it's setting up for what you want. You want to break out above 4. That's your entry. Okay. So, when you're looking at this, you're looking for all prices to go up at this point. Once we break through this, there's no more resistance for a while anyways. There's resistance on the left, but we are out of the woods from any recent activity, and that's what we're worried about the most. So the breakout from 4, and that gets moving. DWSN broke out and has kept going. You could have put the stop at the low of day, and this guy just keeps moving. A lot of these you could put the stop at the low of day is what we're seeing, right? If you bought this. Here, it's an anticipation setup. So if you thought this was looking like it would break out, you could have put your buy entry just above at 13 and you'd be in. Maybe your stops below this little area. Easy pin, bigger candle, but pulled back some and then up again the next day. We're chopping around, but we're grinding higher. Seems like the trend's in place now. So this was buyable. This was also anticipation, but we could have also bought the break here. Or you could have bought the break of the trend line, which would have been about right here. Also the 200-day moving average would have made sense. So anywhere in this area would have been probably the best buy stop. So buy stops will get you into these, but they're a little scary because you never know what price you're going to get on these pop-ups. BPHI, this one actually broke down. I don't know why I had that in there. KRA, here's one that broke out here. And it's worked sideways, and now it's moving, but slow. Still, you could have bought it, right, the next day. AMSC, here we had a little pop here, and then higher. It keeps working its way higher, and now pulling back. Might even retest the trend line, but you had a nice little move up to here, and then on high volume, it tops out, right? So you got to keep an eye. When you see a spinning top, high volume, it's time to move on. That means a lot of sellers and buyers, but too much mix, right? Lots of volume, not price moving. See here, another one. This broke out from about here, and you had sort of that rolling flag, and then it breaks out. You could have bought this. This probably wasn't the best candle to buy. And then right here, you could have your buy stop in. The little ones, they tend to have a couple of days, as we see, 2 days here, 3 days, and then a lot of sideways. SWNC breaks out here, and then right here around 2650, and then continues on, and now we've pulled back a little bit. Reversal candles here and here. You would have wanted sold before it gets down to this candle. ADMP, drug manufacturer. This one came all the way back. Look, it broke out. So here's one that didn't work, right? We broke out if we bought the breakout, right? So we've been looking for a higher price. Well, you would have bought early, right? So we would have got in here, and then we're just chopping around, and then we break out thinking, okay, this is going to work. Falls through the next day and then completely reverses and gives everything back. So this is why we have our stop down here to protect against that. RYAM, big candle, and now we're pulling back. So a lot of these big candles, you'll see a pullback. Big candle, more pullback. NEF, medium candle, just glides and then some sort of pullback. And you'll also see that too. You go for a little while, then there's some sort of event that brings it back down towards this candle, and then right back. RSYS, so here we had a medium candle pops up, and if you were going to enter here, you could have, if you were buying the candle, you would have been stopped out here. If you were looking for a higher high to enter on, then you never would have got it and you wouldn't have entered. So perhaps that's the better play, is the higher high. Look for a higher close. But it came pretty close, and then it just gave it all back. TSC had a pop, but not much, a little sideways. See, the small candle pops kind of not as exciting. Black conviction. NSP, that's a nice move. You had a nice base, right? This, you definitely could have had your stop in here. And see, buy stop would have been triggered here. Came back in. If your stop was a low, probably around here, you'd still be in it. And then the next day keeps moving. So that was a pretty good mover. LVFN. Now this is interesting because there's several ways you could have played this guy. So you had a big drop. And when you have these drops, you can also play the drop to try to catch a bounce and see if you can't get some upside. So here you have price falling down, and then you get 1, 2, 3 days, right? A volume, decent volume, and it eclipses 1, 2, 3, 4 days, right? So when you see 4 days get evaporated, that's a confirmation that's price has changed, and we're starting to move up. We're seeing the volume change. And this bar right here, you could have entered, because right here is probably where you're saying your signal is, and then here you enter, and it keeps going. But even if you didn't, if you waited, it runs up, it pulls back a little bit. Now it's an anticipation setup. Okay, we have a little cup, a little handle, and now we're looking for higher price, and here we have our entry right around 950. We would have got in on this day, pull back a little bit, and then it just goes up 30% or so. That's a nice win. DLNG, this one broke out, came back in 50%, and then just kept moving, right? So, you know, if you just bought the candle, I bought the pullback. Sometimes when you see this type of candle, it's a pullback candle, right? It's you're seeing, if you look at that candle that's up there right now, that's 1 week. So you see, there it is. It comes in, gives about 50%, right? So think about that, the Fibonacci number, right? They like to come in that 50% retracement and then run. So you to see how much that comes back in. But these can be entry candles. But you had a few spots, right? You had here where this price was taking out multiple days. That could have been your entry. And then this big bar definitely broke out of all this, right? So that would have been your entry there. And then you have another level here as you work higher, around 1185, that if it broke there. So if you set your buy stop somewhere in here, you would have been in here as well. A little pullback and kept running. And then here, very bearish hanging man on volume, right? No, that's volume the next day, but still pretty good volume. You don't want to be holding candles like that. That's it's tired at that point. RSYS. This one broke out but gave everything back. So you do see that. That's a couple we've seen. NVDA breaks out and just keeps going. So, you know, we're seeing a lot of that where they're breaking out and they keep going, or they have a small pullback and then they move up. But this one's moved every day since. A little pullback within the day. So sometimes you can wait till the next day, get a little cheaper. But your stop would be the low of the candle. EPE. A lot of it's the pattern too. See, notice what's going on before breakout, right? This guy breaks out, but then it starts chopping around a lot, and you can see it does that. It chops around a lot. So when you're buying a breakout type stock, you want to make sure it's what is it doing beforehand? Is it chopping around a lot? This can be an indication that there's trouble, that it's going to give a hard time once it breaks out. So we want a clean pattern for these. IRIX. Big candle here, and price highs is the key for this one. So we have a chop around. We might have been on our radar as a pullback, and then big candle up, breaks out on price, stays high. You can see the advertisement for higher prices here. Here we have a big candle, but we'll use the majority of the pattern down here. It breaks out here, runs up, breaks out, big candle, but then gives much of it back, and it's still chopping around. So your entry here would be another breakout, probably of this 200-day area. ARGS, biotech, had a little pop, pulling back here, so not too exciting, but all right, here's one. Didn't really gap, just kind of had a big price day, but same thing, big gap up, big price day up, and then just a little candle, but working its way higher. FFHL, this one's too thin to be of interest. This one, soda, that's a nice volume. When you see the big volume, usually the price isn't coming back because so many buyers have just created a new zone, right? So now it's a higher price area. So this is one, investigate, probably earnings, something. And now it's holding price pretty good, but where's your entry now? Your entry now would be higher prices, right? Above about 1975 or so. So if it can get to higher prices. CLW popped, and now it's just going sideways. If you put your stop at the low of day, though, you would have been stopped out. So perhaps with the air, when you have a lot of air, we do something different. Maybe let's see what's the 50% retrace of this area. All right, so there's your area, right? So you could have done, so here's the 61% retracement area, and it's just below. So, something like that, maybe a 61% retracement will, if you use that on the whole move. Because below 61%, you don't want more than 61% of this up move giving back anyways, because then the likelihood of it coming all the way back down is very high, so you don't want to get caught in that. So possible tool, FNJN, broke out here above this level and then worked its way 3 days higher. Huge volume candle and then volume back. So you had a couple days, but these little ones don't give you much. Beat pops up. If you did your stop at low a day, you'd still be in it. Does get tired here. Volume's lighter, but it did roll over a bit here. You probably would have had just stopped out, though. You probably would have had a stop right below here. But if you kept your stop over here, you're still in. You've had a reversal, and now you're looking for higher prices. Faux. We broke out. Big candle, right? And now just working higher. But, you're in, right? You're in. It's a good entry. So SONS, zones, pop, and now just sliding sideways, but it did start to move again, right? LEU, this one, I think we had it way back here. So these giant candles on the low price stocks, a lot of the time they give it back. And we see it here. It gave a lot back, popped, it gave a lot back. So patience here, and you got to see if it holds. But right now, the little ones don't look as good. The under $10. Sky West here, pretty good candle, has the pullback within the day, which is buyable, by the way, and then pulls back a little bit, but that's it. It never gives the candle back, and that's what we're seeing, right? SCLN pops, right? And how would that look on day one, right? It just doesn't look buyable, right? Because it looks like, oof, are you gonna buy that? I don't know. It seems scary, right? I know it does to me, but then they keep going. Okay, how's it look now? I mean, now you're up 30%. Now it pulled back, but you're still up a lot. So ACCO pops. This one gave it back on the next day, so you would have stopped if you bought it here. But the type of candle shows you too. See how it gave more than 62% of that move back. So you would have been better off holding, and then it drops again here. At this point, you've given back. Now you got to wait for a higher price, probably a close above this close. And, it's grinded higher, but this wasn't a great one. I think this candle was an indicator that it wasn't going to be a great one to buy. Atwood, a big candle up, gives half of it back. So sometimes you'll get a 50% retrace the next day. And then back to going good. Too thin. This guy popped up. Small candles, right? When we see the small candle pops, they don't seem to do as well. They drift. It's drifting now. Could set up. I mean, it is setting up, but your buy is now, above this stuff on volume. G-Coast, another small candle pop, give some back, right? Zillow pop, but you see how it gave a lot of the candle back? It's given a lot back. FN, small candle. So it seems like the small candles don't have as much follow through. They just have big price gaps. See how big the gap is in relation to the candle? And now it's given a lot back and breaks through its trend line today, actually. But firming up again. It's interesting to see if it will come back up. Nutrisystems, the same thing, big gap. And it seems like when you have a lot of air, you're going to get more of a pullback. HMSY, more of a pullback, small candles. STXS had a big pop, but see how there's no volume before? So this is the only news it had, and then now the news is old and it starts going down. So little guys, not as reliable. BSX, Boston Scientific. Small candle pop, pretty good setup. Not terrible amount of air, but pretty good amount of air, and then sideways. So you could have bought this after the fact, right? You could have used this as an anticipation setup. You're right about here as you buy. So it's still a buy, really, right there. So some of these you can wait on and get in later. EXFO, you had the pop here and just kept going, right? And pull back now. But so it seems like when the candles are decent size, like a half inch or more, we're seeing good follow through, right? NKA, that was a bigger one. So the bigger ones, you get a little pullback flag. Could have bought the flag right there. And just got in at higher prices. AOSL had a pop, but it gave everything back. So looked good on the day, but you also had price action over here. It wasn't all-time high or anything. Well, I guess it was. It was all-time high, but it just gave it all back. So this is one you would have been stopped out at. Derm pops here and just keeps going so far. BGS, big pop and still moving. It's come back a little bit, but FMC pop flagging now, but nice move. That's the Zillow. We saw that already. WNC. All right, so it's another small guy, but huge bar. You wouldn't buy that, too big. Nano, about a half-inch bar. That was buyable. And then it goes up a couple more days, and you see the shooting star, and then it's flagging again. And then we have another breakout. It's held so far. Gilt. You see this guy breaks up, but it's a very choppy pattern. Has a lot of gaps and chops, and it chops back down, gaps back up, chops back down. Not ideal. So volume definitely has a factor, right? Fizz pops up sideways a little bit, gives it back a little bit, but holds for the most part. And for the most part, you can put your stop at the low of day, and these tend to hold. I haven't had too many that haven't. PCMI, PC Mall breaks up, and it holds. Still doing good, right? So PKY, a REIT, breaks up, even with a kind of a crappy spinning top candle, and it keeps going. So TTS, however, does not, and it's got sort of tight candles, right? History of these choppiness, so breaks up and then back to choppy. You would have stopped out on this one. KNL, Knoll breaks out, pulled all the way back, then it's tried to move again. Now it's all the way back again. So you still would have been in it though, if your stop was low a day. Have to see what happens there. Glob, The breakout, pulling back. Still, you know, if you bought the breakout. See, a lot of these, if you just bought the breakout, you'd be fine. Here, Faro, you know, 34 will get you in, right? So see if it gaps up again. But, you know, right here, gapped up, continued. Now it's pulling back into that a little bit. HLS, big candle, now lots of little guys pulling back. About 50%, but still holding low of day. Rogers not holding low of day. This would have stopped out. Some of them go further, right? iRobot breaking out, consolidating. Looks like it probably wants to go higher. Cognex breaking out and then rolling, but still above low of day. IR breaking out, working higher. Blocks, big gap of air, but still holding it. Still holding the low. Science Applications, huge breakout, but this would have been buyable to see how it worked its way up. It didn't gap up, so you could have had a buy in at 48. You could have got in right in there. So if you're already anticipating and then there's a breakout like that, you can get in, get nice prices. And even if that was earnings, right? If you think they're going to have good earnings, you could put your buy way ahead. If it's bad, it's going to gap down. You're not going to get it. But if it's good, it opens up and you keep running. FTNT, application software. This guy popped up. Kind of a bearish candle, though. Gives it back, red candle. And gives it all back. You would have stopped out on that one. Yelp, nice candle, pop. And then pulling back and now just working sideways. If you had the low of day at 23.66, you're still in it. And it's setting up again. And this could be a nice run. So up to 30 or so. Or you can have another buy around 26.75. So there's a couple spots here you could enter. So anticipation setup. Patience. MVC, it breaks up, lots of air, and now moving nicely. So you could still buy this one. CEC breaks up, lots of air below. It's holding its low. Nice little pullback, right? So these are you can buy these, right? When they break out. Papa John's has the breakout, goes sideways, breaks out again, pulling back a little bit, but hold it up pretty good. Atlas breaks out. But see the big loose candle? That's an indication that it's not going to work. And we do see that in follow-up candles if you waited the next day, not looking so good, not trying to get higher and breaking down. So that wasn't a good one. His Six Flags actually looks good when it breaks out, but gives it all back. So your stop would have been low a day. You would have been stopped out on that one. SNCR, this one is a good breakout, and you are still in it. You know, a little pullback, but nothing too bad. CUDA, Barracuda breaks out, gives it all back. You would have stopped out on this one. NLS breaks out, still up. You know, for a loose pattern too. I would have thought we would have stopped out quick, but it's held, right? And often the next day is the worst day, and then we chop around and it doesn't get that bad again. So you can often buy the next day, right? See the next day, the next couple of days, see how it goes down the most in the next 2 days. But you're still in. You're still in. NSC, lots of air. Now it's giving most of it back, though. And you would have had your stop at low day, so you'd have been out. Label breaks out, now working sideways, starting to give some more back. Such a tiny candle that I wouldn't have had it at low a day. I would have had it at the 50% retracement of this move. So here's the 61. I'd say the 61. 62% retrace level's pretty good. Build-A-Bear breaks out, holds up, looks like it's going to break out, and then falls apart here. But it's still above its breakout level, but not much. IAC breaks out, keeps moving, a little pullback here, but not too bad. A-Lot and MIH break out and working lower. So some of these you would have been stopped out at. Looser, this didn't have as much of a breakout. This had a nice breakout, FSB bank. Also note what it is, right? A bank. Kind of slow. Nice flag, though, and then it breaks out again. So it looks like it's confirmed. And then right here, I would have sold because it gapped all the way down. So you wouldn't have hung around. What was this one? Yeah, we had a little pop, but gives it all back. The little ones aren't that reliable. Cabela's broke out. Nice little sideways. Breaks out again, but then we give it all back. And down we go. So, again, probably a 62% retrace of the candle on these big ones is good enough to give them time. Kubi. So now we're starting to see a lot that are pulling back quite a bit, stopping out. But they're not as exciting. You can see the breakouts, the little guys often give it back, you see. STGY. It looked great, right? Breaking out here. 3 or 4 days, and then they fall apart, these little ones. WKHS, again, 3 or 4 days. Probably a good short, right? 3 or 4 days on these little ones and then short them. Although, if you did that here and it went sideways, and then you would have ate that. So, it's tough. These little ones are tough. Cirrus, pulling back here. And we had a gap up, and then it gave it all back, right? If you had to stop at 62%, you would have been safe. So, a lot of these ones that aren't working, loose patterns, right? Here, it's a little tighter, but a little one again. Little ones give it off. Tesla. This is, I don't even know why this is in here, but you can see that this is a good example of a trade, though. First of all, we have a big run up here, which is very hard to get in once it's going, right? These good trending stocks that are really rocking, to get in, you would have to buy every time it hits the trend line. That's your only chance. And then maybe here on a pullback, right? New price highs. And then it goes sideways, right? So then we roll. And now we're here, and what do you want to see? You want to see this 215. I think it's 215 area. Yeah, about 216 with volume. You want to see it break out of this and see if we start a new trend. So that's an interesting one. I'll be watching it. Skechers, bigger price trend that gapped up, but right into resistance, right? So that's another point. If you gap up, but there's resistance right there, you're probably going to come back down. And this one did, and it's given quite a bit of it back. TAT has a 3-day pop that gives it back. Little stock again. SAII has a pop and gave it all back. So the second batch later hasn't been doing as well, right? We've got, this is tighter price action too. So you give it back and then you stopped out the next day. So they don't always work. NBY Biotech breaks out, has a nice run, and then gives it all back. Crocs, big bar up, and now earnings, and now giving a lot of it back. Pacific Bio breaks out sideways, looks pretty good. You know, prior trend was down though, right? It's better if we have a uptrend. Downtrend breakout gives a lot back. Downtrend breakout gives a lot back. Gives a lot back. These little ones just aren't reliable. I think we have a lot of little price stocks in here. BSTG, just because they break out so much. The big breakouts, but 3 or 4 days seems to be the max, right? GNCA, drug news, breaks out, gave everything back. WINT, same thing, 3 or 4 days. LinkedIn broke out sideways. This is setting up though. 132. I put a buy stop at 132 and just wait. If that thing breaks that on volume, that's going to be big. CAS, look at that. Oof, looked good, and then everything back. Not good. PAR, right? So what are we seeing? The ones that fail are these little stocks. They don't hold the breakouts. Right? They hold it for a couple days and then complete wipeout. Look at that. 50%. G&K, breakout, downtrend, small. You get a small stock in a downtrend, breaking out, you're likely to give it back. Paragen, giving it back. GBSN, Duluth, breaks up, giving some back. And that's all I have on the list. So, you know, what do we see? The first half or so, we had a lot of higher price stocks that were in some uptrends, right? And they did a little bit better. They broke out. They held the breakouts, for the most part, and have done well. The low price stocks under $10 haven't done as well. They break out, but they're not holding it. We're seeing higher prices break out, hold it. So there's definitely consideration about the price of the stock, right? That's the first consideration. The second consideration is the slope, is the trend up or down. The stocks in downtrends that have the big pop, they're giving it back. So that's something to be wary of. Anything that's giving all of that back, we have to watch out for. And also the size of the candle. The best ones seem to be these sort of mid-sized half-inch candles. And they break out, and they're not ridiculously high. Some of them do well, right? So this was a big one. It did well. So there is some pullback. We are going to get retracements on these, but a lot of the times these breakouts are effective, right? And we could buy a lot of these. And from looking at the list, it's probably better than 50% that continue. And I think that if we want to increase our odds, we would get rid of a lot of the lower price stocks with the looser patterns and would probably do better. So we'll continue to watch these kind of stocks and circle back and see how these ones did. Maybe what we'll do is start a new list of these for going forward, and we'll just keep watching, and we'll keep seeing if there's anything new setting up on setups like this. Definitely the higher price ones do better. And the tighter the price pattern, the better. So I think you can do better than 50% with this method. And I think, all it requires is you punching in the symbols of stocks that had the big percent gains on the day, which is like, 10 or 15 that are quality, right, with volume. Do that every day and start building a list, and you'll have a list like this. And I think it will really help you in your trading to learn the breakouts, study them, and see what works and what doesn't. We're also entering a pullback, so that's why we're getting a bit more of a pullback on some of these. So also know where the market is, right? A breakout into a bad market is going to get you in pullback real quick. So take it with what it is and be cautious, but this does seem like a good method if you want to expand your gains and have a decent high expectancy. This would be a good process to follow. If you have size your positions correctly, you will win more than 50% of the time, it looks like, but you'd have to have a bigger sample set and have some real trades on it to get the feel for it. Definitely start with a small position because of the gap, you can't have a really tight stop on these. So you're talking about 5 or 10% of your portfolio in these positions with pretty loose stops. But, these can be productive. And you don't have to buy them all the day they pop. As we saw, a lot of them have some sort of pullback, right? So you can also wait for a secondary breakout. So I hope that gives you an idea of how to trade breakouts from some sort of episode that causes the price to go higher. And hopefully you can incorporate this into your trading. If you want to learn more about this type of strategy or other strategies I cover, visit thepatienttrader.com. Again, thepatienttrader.com. And if you want to join, I go over these video watch lists 3 times a week, and we have a good sampling of trades to work with and a model portfolio. It can really help the learning curve. So you want to really crank up your learning, come on over to the Patient Trader and give us a try. All right. Happy trading, and I hope you all do very well. Let's all hope we can trade for a living one day, right? Get out of the job. You can do it. You can do it. Just stick with a method like this, and always stick with one thing. Get it working before you go on to the next thing. All right? Take care. God bless.